everyone, my name is Allison Pamper, and today I'm going to be showing you a brief tour of a grocery store so you can see where to find some of the healthy staples we talked about in the previous session. I'm at Stop and Shop now, but everything I'm going to talk about should apply to any other grocery store. So we're going to start in this Nature's Promise. It's a lot of grocery stores have what they call a health foods aisle or the Nature's Marketplace, and it's where you can find a lot of organic foods, vegan and vegetarian alternatives. It's also where you can find a lot of the types of foods where you can find in other places in the grocery store, like seeds. Here, there's some flax seeds, some flour. We're going to be talking about all of these products later on, and other places you can find them as well, but also some nut butters and seed butters. Again, we're going to be talking about this later on, where they can be found in other parts of the store. There's some beans here, some lentils. So you can find a lot of these grocery shopping staples in this aisle as well. They just might be a little pricier. So there's some rice, some lentils, some quinoa that can be found in this aisle. Quinoa is usually going to be found in this aisle or maybe a bulk food section. There's also some nuts and seeds. At Stop and Shop in particular, this is the only place where I saw nuts and seeds, but other grocery stores might have them in other sections as well. So the first aisle that we're going to go into is the breakfast foods aisle, which is where you can find oats. And we talked about oats in our first section. They are a grain. They are a great source of complex carbohydrates and fiber and vitamins and nutrients. So here there's a lot of different types. As you can see, there's rolled oats, quick oats, steel cut oats, and the difference between these is how the groat or the oat kernel is processed. Steel cut oats are groats that are chopped up a bit, and they take longer to cook than rolled or quick oats, about 30 minutes, but it makes a nice chewy texture. Rolled and quick oats are fairly similar, but quick oats, which you can see here, they go through a bit more processing, which just means they're cut into smaller and thinner pieces, so they don't retain as much texture, but they cook quicker, which could make them more convenient. And there aren't any drastic health differences between the different types of oats, so choose the one that is most convenient and cost effective for you. So next, we're going to be talking about canned and packaged fruits. So as I mentioned in the previous session, canned and packaged fruits often have added sugar to serve as a preservative, so you just want to check the labels and ingredient list. Here you can see there's pineapple and its own juice and pineapple juice. So if you check the nutrient label, there's 0 grams added sugar. Sugar is not included in the ingredient list. For something like these mandarin oranges, they're in light syrup, which means there's some added sugar in there. And you can see it includes 17 grams of added sugar, and sugar is included in the ingredient list as well. And then it can also say something like in heavy syrup, which also just means that there's a lot of added sugar in there. So you can see there's added sugar, and then in the ingredients list, there's corn syrup, high fructose corn syrup, and sugar all in there, all serving as a sweetener and a preservative. You can also see something that says artificially sweetened, and this means that there's not sugar in it. So you can see there's 0 grams of added sugar, but there's sucralose, which is a type of artificial sweetener, and that means that an artificial sweetener is a 0-calorie sweetener added to make the product taste sweeter, and it doesn't spike your blood sugar levels. So you can see there's also some packaged products, and the same sort of rules apply. You want to check the label, and then just to double check, you want to look at the nutrient facts label and the ingredient list. So you can see here that there are some added sugars, and then you can see sugar right there is the third ingredient. The new nutrition labels are great because they show sugar, but they also show added sugar, and that's what you want to pay attention to. Unsweetened is another good little claim to look for. It says 0 grams added sugar, there's no sugar listed on the ingredient list. But if the product doesn't explicitly say unsweetened, it can be a little trickier. So again, you want to look for that added sugar line because the sugar, just the normal sugar line, can include natural sugars. So you want to look for things that have been added in. So next we're going to be looking at canned beans and lentils. And as I mentioned in the grocery shopping staples webinar, the canned beans have the same sort of issue that we just discussed with the canned fruit of having an added preservative, but in this case it is sodium or salt. So you can see here there's a lot of different types to choose from, and then if you were to just pick up a can of beans, you can see that there usually is some sodium included, and you want to look for labels that say low sodium or no salt added. But again, if there is sodium in the product, you always want to rinse and drain so that some of the salt is removed. So you can see here, this has 340 milligrams of sodium in a serving, and you can see that salt has been added. So you can look for cans that say low sodium, like these black beans here, and then when you check, it's 130 milligrams of sodium, and that's a good amount for a serving, and you can see there's still salt added, just not as much. So the other alternative is you can look for a can that says no sodium added or no salt added, like these black beans here. And then when you check, you can see there's only 5 milligrams of sodium. There's no salt included in the ingredients, and that 5 milligrams is just because beans are not a sodium-free food. They contain sodium on their own. You can see you can also buy lentils here. They're a little bit more convenient than dry lentils because you don't have to cook them, but you can also buy dry lentils here or dried beans, and sometimes they can be a bit cheaper, but you do have to cook them before making them. See, you have lentils right there. There's a lot of different types of lentils you can buy in this section, and you can see that the ingredient is just lentils. So with the dry lentils and dry beans, you don't have to worry as much about preservatives because they're in their dry state. You can see there's red lentils here, a lot of different types. You can buy beans that are dried, and it's great that you don't have to worry about the added preservatives. So a lot of times the beans and the lentils are in the same aisle as rice. You can see there are many different types to choose. So choose what is culturally significant to you or what you enjoy the taste of. There is quinoa in this aisle as well. Quinoa can be a bit expensive, so again, just choose what is cost effective for you. There are a lot of different sizes you can buy. There's these large bulk sizes, and then there's the smaller containers like what the quinoa was in. I like to buy rice in bulk, so I'll buy one of these big bags and then transfer it to a sealed container at my apartment. But again, there's a lot of different types. You can buy white rice, brown rice, different grain sizes. So choose what you prefer the taste of, what is culturally significant to you, and what is affordable. So next we're going to be looking at the canned vegetables, which I will go over fairly quickly since we already have gone over what you really need to know because they're similar to the beans where you just have to check for preservatives. So you can see here something like spinach, if you check the nutrient label, there's only 80 milligrams of sodium, and it's just spinach and water, which is great. If you were to check something like peas, which are actually a legume, you can see that there are 300 milligrams of sodium in a serving, and it contains sugar and salt for preservatives. So it's the same sort of thing that I went over with the beans, is you can look for these low sodium cans. This has 130 milligrams of sodium. That's great for a serving, and it still has sugar and salt included, but it's at a much lower size. And again, you can drain and rinse to remove a lot of those added preservatives. Or you can choose a no salt added one. So this has 15 milligrams of sodium, but none of it is added in. And it says there it's not a sodium-free food, so that sodium is natural to the food. You can also buy mixes like this. This contains carrots, potatoes, peas, corn. So you're getting a lot of the nutrients from the vegetables. You're getting a little bit of protein from the beans and the peas. And since this is no salt added, it's 20 milligrams. And all the ingredients are just what's actually in the can, just the different vegetables and legumes. So in the same aisle, we're going to go and look at some pasta. I'm sure this is a familiar aisle for many of you. Pasta, as we all know, is relatively cheap, and there are a lot of different types to choose from. It's a great option for anyone to include in their diet. So you can see here, this is just the basic sort of pasta. It's super affordable. It's a great option. You can see it's a good source of protein and carbohydrates, not a lot of ingredients, but there are different types of pasta based on what they're made with. There's this regular pasta, there's also whole grain pasta, which you can see here, which just has a little bit more fiber, a little bit more of the nutrients that I discussed in our previous session, just because of how the grains are processed. So you can see here it's made with whole wheat flour. It has a little bit more fiber, so it just might help you stay full for a little longer. But if you don't like the taste or texture that comes with whole grain pasta, then it's totally fine to just stick with the regular pasta. You can also try half and half to just sort of introduce whole grain pasta into your diet to see if you do like it. And you can see there's a lot of different types here, similar with the regular pasta. You can buy penne, you can buy spaghetti, there's a lot of different types. There's also these newer pastas that are made with chickpeas or lentils or black beans. They're very trendy right now. I'm sure you've seen them. It's a great way to get your legumes into your diet. So you can see there's only one ingredient in the red lentil pasta. It's just red lentil flour, and it has a lot of fiber, it has a lot of protein, you get some iron with this. So I personally like to mix the chickpea red lentil pasta with regular pasta just because regular pasta is cheaper, but I like to get the nutrients from the lentils, and I personally like the taste. Okay, so next is going to be the bread aisle, which can be very overwhelming because there are so many different types here. But basically, what it comes down to is your white and your whole wheat. And remember that you want to check the ingredient list and make sure that the first ingredient is whole wheat or a whole grain to make sure that you are getting all three parts of the wheat kernel that I talked about in the previous session, so that you're getting the fiber, the nutrients, and the healthy fats associated with this. So you can see, yes, there are so many different types to choose from. It can be very overwhelming. You can also look on the package itself for whole grain certified claims like that. So this is Wonder Bread. It's your typical white bread. So if you look at the nutrition facts, it's only got 2 grams of fiber, and it's got a ton of ingredients. You can see it's unbleached enriched flour, which means that the nutrients were removed during the milling process and then they were synthetically added back in afterwards. So if we keep walking over here, we can look at some whole wheat bread. So this one says 100% whole wheat. So if you look at the nutrition facts label, it does have a bit more fiber in it, and it says whole wheat flour, water. Sugar is the third ingredient. It also has some honey, some vegetable oil. Ideally, you'd want the sugar to be a little bit farther down on the list, but it depends on what sort of product you're buying. Here's another 100% whole wheat from the same brand. You can see that this bread looks a little different. And you can see that there's some other sorts of ingredients added in. And it's also got a little bit more fiber than the white bread had, just because of the way the wheat kernel was processed. And here we have some whole grain, healthy multi-grain bread. It says it has 38 grams of whole grain in 2 slices. You want to pay attention to claims like that. So you see here it's got whole wheat flour, water, wheat gluten, and then sugar. And then it lists a lot of different seeds that are included in other grains. And it's got a good amount of fiber in it. So you want to pick the type of bread that tastes good to you, that you know you'll eat, and you want to just pay attention to those ingredients. And you want to first and foremost make sure that the first ingredient is whole wheat or whole grain to make sure that you're getting the right amount of nutrients. So here we have some nut and seed butter. You can see there's a lot of different types. Here's some peanut butter. It says on the brand unsalted. So if you check, you can see that it doesn't have any added sodium. The ingredients are literally just dry roasted peanuts. That's all it really needs to be, is the nut or seed that the product is made out of. You don't really need all of the additives. But if you check some other brands, Jif is a pretty common peanut butter brand. You can see it looks a little different than the last one we looked at, and it does have some sugar, some partially hydrogenated oils. Those are just added for mouthfeel, preservatives, and you can see there was a little bit of added sugar in there on the nutrient facts label. If we check another brand, Justin's is a pretty popular brand in like health food stores, but you can see it doesn't have any sugar, but it does have added palm oil, which just is another added preservative. And then Peter Pan is another sort of popular brand, and it does have some added sugars, just a little bit. And then you can see that there's sugar in there, there's hydrogenated vegetable oil, there's a lot of different additives in there. You can see when looking at these peanut butters that there's oil on the top. That's perfectly normal. You just want to mix that in before eating it. Those are just the oils that come with the nut or seed itself. There's also some alternatives if you don't like peanut butter or nut butter. If you have allergies, you can buy something like sun butter, which is made from sunflower seeds. You can see that it does have some added sugar. There's sugar and salt added on here, but it's still a good alternative if you do have allergies or if you just prefer the taste of the sun butter. They also have tahini, which is a little bit more expensive. You can see it has the oil on the top. So you can see just the only ingredient is ground sesame seeds, which is great. That's all you really need it to be. And tahini is great because it also can have a sweet or savory aspect to it. But again, regardless of what the ingredient and the nutrition label says, you want to pick what tastes good to you and what you can afford. So lastly, we're going to look at some frozen foods. Frozen produce is an excellent choice because there's a wide variety of types you can buy and it lasts for a long time. Any are fine to choose based on your preference. I like to get a mix, so I'm getting a lot of different vegetables in one bag, but you do want to keep an eye on sodium levels because it can be added as a preservative, especially if sauces, dairy, or meat products are also included. But if you look here, this is just chopped broccoli. It literally, the only ingredient is just broccoli, so all the nutrition that's in there is coming from the broccoli itself. There's green beans. Again, the ingredient is just green beans, and these vegetables are usually frozen at peak right after being harvested, so they're at the optimal nutrition level. So here's one of those mixed bags that I kind of like to buy, just so you're getting a lot of different nutrients in one bag. Here's another little mix that you can try. And these can be used in a variety of ways. Here's another one. It says no preservatives on the bag, which is great. These can just be heated up in water to be used as a side dish. You can add them to pasta, rice dishes, stir fries. But you do want to be cautious of things like this, where it's a frozen meal in a bag essentially. So this is cheesy ranch chicken. It has a creamy ranch and cheddar cheese sauce. This is where you really want to be careful. So you can see all the ingredients here. It's got 650 milligrams of sodium in a serving, and that's because of the sauces and the chicken that is included in there, where they just have to add a ton of preservatives. There's some other dishes like that, like maybe a cheesy broccoli dish you would also have to watch out for. There's some pasta and vegetable dishes here, frozen pizzas. Like, you always want to be cautious of the preservatives that are needed to keep cheese, dairy, and meat from spoiling. So for frozen fruit, again, I prefer to buy a variety of berries because you're getting a lot more nutrients, but pick what you like and what is affordable. You can see there's a lot of different options here. So this bag right here is literally just strawberries, blueberries, blackberries, and raspberries, which is great. And then if you check the nutrition facts in the ingredient list, there's nothing else added. There's no added sugars, and it's literally just the berries themselves, which is great. There's other options if you don't like the taste of berries. You can buy something like this that has pineapple, strawberries, mango, and peaches in it. And again, there's no added sugars. The ingredients are just the fruit themselves. These are great to add into smoothies, oatmeal, heat up and have on top of any sort of breakfast or as a snack. You can also buy blends like this that have some protein or added fat in them to make it more of a filling meal. This one you can see has some almond butter and has some protein added, no added sugars, still low sodium. So you just want to keep an eye on that. So that was our grocery shopping tour for the TC Me Virtual Wellness Conference. I hope you learned a lot, and there is a handout posted on the Student Health and Wellness website for you to take a look at as well. Thank you for watching.